Welcome, everyone. It is February 14th, and it is another opportunity to love what you do again. And as always, we're all about helping leaders own their leadership and being purposeful about discovering their evidence to discover what leadership looks like to them, how they actually get to live it out and walk in their talk. And again, some people are already love and they just get to love it greater. And some people are looking to love certain things again more purposely. And this is what we're going to talk about today, ironically. So the next slide is all about the relentless leadership, or what we call being relentless, and is one of our values. And we explained to everybody, we were talking about all three of our values. And this one, I love the visual that Miss Haley created here, because what powerful Scrabble words, never mind the points I started to add up in the process, just because I just, enjoy the value of all the different numbers. And everybody has a different definition of relentlessness, and we're going to open that up in a few minutes. Yet for me personally, and I shared it in our Possibility Monday video, as well as everybody's heard me talk about the commitment of being consistently relentless. And that for me personally, that is the opportunity to not only decide, commit, and repeat, it's consistency. So one of my coaches, some of you have met, that will actually be at this mastermind experience in July, is a gentleman that uses the term consistently persistent about being persistently consistent. Say that again 4 times fast. Persistently consistent about being consistently persistent, or the other way around, consistently persistent about being persistently consistent. You know how long it took me to be able to say that consistently like that?
Persistently.
Persistently. Right?
You seem to be doing it consistently. So
right. Because that is what relentlessness is about, is that consistency, that commitment and clarity about what you're being committed to. And that's a key statement there. What are you being committed to? Because relentlessness happens from that decision. And I love it how Miss Haley gave us a very well polished definition. And Haley, I'll let you read that.
Sure. I have to move my face. Okay. Relentlessness is a requirement for all successful coaches. For us, being relentless means sitting in the driver's seat. So this is actually from our coach's guide. Mm-hmm. It's being willing to determine and commit to every action, behavior, or thought we have. We make each decision by determining what the next right thing is for all involved. As we own our leadership by looking in the mirror individually and cooperatively, we gather evidence to assess and reframe our mindset to align it with our core values. As we align our actions, thoughts, and behaviors with the powerful life lessons we have gained, we get to love what we do and love it even greater. We get to be relentless about one choice and one light at a time, even in the midst of extreme challenges.
Now, Richard, Miss Elaine, and Elaine, it helped us create our outline for our coach's guide. So when we recruit coaches, this is one of the values that they will get introduced to and understanding they're aligning with. And the onboarding process, which is always so much fun in all of our teams, is the onboarding process for people that you bring onto your team. And so we've been diligent and relentless, slowly but surely, to add pieces to the puzzle, including defining our values. And
April, just an FYI, your volume seems to be going up and down a bit.
Thank you for that. That's good to know. And is that better?
Yeah, I think when you lean forward, you get closer to the mic and it gets louder. That's all.
That probably helps, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I'll probably need to move my mic a little closer to me in the future. So great observation. This is a beautiful visual that she snagged, and we actually have it on our Christ Inspired community page, ironically. And this is a awareness of how close we could be to reaching our commitment, our vision, our goal, our decisions, and how easily we walk away when we're so close. Or it's not so easily in some cases, right? Yeah, beautiful visual. Love, love, love that. We also discussed as we were preparing this conversation is that, and there's a couple of things to remember, is that every business has seasons, and every business, some will choose to keep knocking away and work at it, and some will get to even their 10th year in business and still not keep going through. As the other graphic that Ms. Haley took the time to share with is there's huge percentages in these numbers, and only 30% actually end up having truly successful businesses. There's a post that was done recently. Starbucks didn't determine that they actually didn't get 5 stores for 13 years. The first 3 stores were 9 years, first 2 stores, until they started learning to brew coffee. When they learned that brewing coffee truly expanded them, that's what caused. And many others have had those seasons where they got to be relentless about discovering what was going to create their success and expand them and grow them. Everybody following all that? By the way, this happens in relationships too. We know more than not, most people will give up after the first contact or the second contact or the third contact. And in most cases, it can take anywhere from 12 or more connections with somebody for them to truly remember you and decide to grow with you. That makes sense? Okay, final thought. And I'll let you read this one again, Saley.
Yeah, get comfortable being uncomfortable. This is a quote by Tim S. Grover, who is very well known as a trainer to some of the most elite athletes in the world, Dwayne Wade, Michael Jordan, and the late Kobe Bryant. He says, do the work. Every day you have to do something you don't want to do every day. Challenge yourself to be uncomfortable, push past the apathy and laziness and fear. Otherwise, the next day you're going to have 2 things you don't want to do. Then there are 4 and 5, and pretty soon you can't even get back to the first thing. And then all you can do is beat yourself up for the mess you've created. And now you've got a mental barrier to go along with the physical barriers.
And you have a fun article you wanted to share that you found this for, and you wanted to put in the chat. Do you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah. So I was having a conversation over Super Bowl, just talking about, these elite athletes who are in, the prime of their career right now. And this quote came up, and it was just so fitting, for what we were talking about today. But it led me to this article that's centered around Elon Musk and Michael Jordan, and how relentlessness is a quality that both of them have in their fields, and it sets them apart from the people that they're working with. And but it also makes them very different and almost odd. They make choices that a lot of people will question. They push further than other people push, or they do things that aren't required of them. But that's why they're household names, and that's why they're the legends that they are. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that article. It's just a very quick, interesting read in the chat after I'm done sharing my screen.
And our final question for the day: what does it mean? What does relentless leadership look like to you? What does it mean? And you can go ahead and share, young lady. Thank you so much. Okay. Who wants to be brave?
Oh,
great job.
So relentless leadership. I don't know about the leadership part. I just continue to do what I do and try to realize that I'm an example to my children and the people around me, and just continue to do like the same thing consistently every day. I'm not amazing at some of the things that I have to do, but I am relentless in my pursuit of getting where I want to be. And I think some of that just means that you just have to continue to do it, even though you feel uncomfortable, which is some of the stuff that you guys were talking about.
Mm. Well, and Deborah, you mentioned something about, I'm not sure about the leadership aspect of it, and choosing to know that you're leading by example. That is a leadership choice. That is a beautiful thing.
I don't have any specific, like I don't have a team that I'm a leader of, but yes, I'm going to lead and be an example to those around me.
And it's one of the tools that we are incorporating into one of our tools is what we call self-leadership. And it's the opportunity for each individual to walk through the clarity and the awareness of what their assets are and what their biases are in that journey. And it is self-leadership is a whole journey, and never mind to the people, your team and your community and your clients and everyone else, right? I love that. Thank you for sharing. Richard?
Well, as is my wont, I immediately went to the dictionary to look up the word relentless, which means continuing without becoming weaker, less severe. So her relentless optimism held the team together. Now that's pretty close to what the common understanding of that word is. But to me, relentless leadership means not stopping.
Mhm.
I question a little bit about the without becoming weaker, because we all have seasons in what we do where we do things better than other times. But if you maintain the commitment to pursuing leadership always, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of how well or poorly you're doing it, then I think that's the key there. I mean, in a way, it's like being on an exercise regimen or a nutrition program. Just keep doing it, right? So that for me, that's the meaning of relentless leadership. Just keep doing it.
Well, and it's an opportunity. And so, Richard, taking all that in and sharing that definition, anything that comes up in questions or thoughts for you as you're moving forward in your, one of the gifts you gave to our community is the awareness of the relentlessness to relationship. I may not always have fun doing certain things, kind of like what Deborah said of, some of those things I'm not so joyful at. And yet we know that there are certain pieces, I'm having led a business for a ridiculous amount of years now, which I'm thankful for, by the way. And yet and I will tell you, I am even more excited for the next 10 years than I was for the first 10 years. And the exciting thing about that is I'm learning what I'm excellent at and what it's okay to delegate, and what things I get to shine at, and what things that I want to surround myself with people that shine, so that I don't need to be the smartest person in the room for that particular area, right? And that's what we want. We don't want to always be the smartest person in the room, right?
For sure.
What we want to do is surround ourselves with those type of relentless relationships, right? And so what's coming up for you?
Who are you looking at, me?
Richard, please.
I
can see how it would be difficult to figure out who I was looking at.
Uncle Sam wants you. Actually, it comes back to, and looking at my own experience about continuing. Everybody has moments where they're not as enthusiastic or whatever. And to me, the real measure is not being quote unquote relentless when you're all jacked about it. That's easy.
Exactly.
How about being relentless when you're not so jacked about it? And having actually recently emerging from a period like that for myself, the only thing I can say about it is it's the relentless aspect. It was the only thing that had kept me going, right? It's like, oh, somebody served me up a pile of shit. It's wonderful. And now I need to keep doing what I need to do, right? So that's what comes up for me about that.
So if I can ask, Richard, how did you do that? How did you talk yourself through that experience of feeling the weight of the world's objection, I guess, to your plight, right? And instead of saying, okay, I give in, I'm done, you win, you persevered. So why did you do that? How did you do that? What was that like?
It was looking at the areas where I was and could continue to be successful, even though it wasn't giving me a result. For instance, in my practice, I do a lot of volunteer work, and I've been successful in that. And I just keep working at those things that I know that I can be successful at. And even in the context of the business, working, for instance, with Elaine on developing our processes, knowing that at some point in the future, this is going to be really valuable and important, even if it isn't producing what I need today. And that just kept me engaged as opposed to crawling in a hole and pulling over the cover, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
that's kind of like you have to see the carrot dangling it ahead.
Well, and it's fun because, being the gift of having coached Richard for years, it always makes me laugh when I hear people say I'm not successful. And I do this as well. When people ask me, well, what made you so successful? I'm like, I don't consider myself successful yet. What are you talking about? Right. And because we hold a bar so high of ourselves. I mean, Richard, if I ask you how many clients on your roster, most lawyers would say, oh my gosh, that's ridiculously successful. Right. And so it's always fun to hear our definition of success and what bar we've set for ourselves and what that success looks like. So as you mentioned, those processes, having had exposure to what you've created, most people couldn't conceive the level of work and time and effort that's gone into the detail. I mean, Miss Elaine uses this concept of taking her business, your business, and making it like
Stretchy
this.
ball. Yeah.
And we love the stretchy ball. This is how we got to build our coach's guide, is figuring out, okay, what are these pieces of this puzzle and how are we defining that? And Richard, how many definitions, how many books of definitions do you have? How many stretchy balls have been pulled out?
More than Carter has peanuts.
Right. I mean, it's outrageously successful and a tool that you spent a lifetime building that now has a huge amount of opportunity as you determine where it goes, how it goes, etc. So we forget, and I'm going through the same thing. So
I want to jump in if I can on
please.
that, because I think that we are, as a culture, as a society, we're trained. There's only one measurement for success: how many dollars are in your account, right?
Right.
And that isn't accurate. It is a measure, and it's a valid measure
Very
for
big
sure,
one.
but it's not the only measure. And if we measure ourselves against that particular stick, we're always going to come up short sometime, right? But if you can broaden your definition and appreciate the other things that you accomplish as successes, then if you're engaged in your life, you are successful, right?
There's multitude of definitions of wealth.
Yeah.
And one of them is in our bank account. And there is definition to that of clarity, of verifying, because sometimes the cost of having so-called money, I mean, you can talk to millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires that may have a multitude of money in their bank account and yet not have any other wealth. And so there is an opportunity to discover what that balancing process is, right? And to clarify, because, and Richard, if you'll allow me to speak for you, you and I share a lot of the same thing, is we'll make sure everybody else gets paid before we get paid. And many business owners are like that. And so the opportunity is making sure how we set our groundwork and our stability and our structure, that we make sure everybody's taken care of, including putting our own oxygen mask on. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And having the structures to verify what needs to be addressed, like that pre-qualification process that Deborah, you have an amazing pre-qualification process, and yet it also can be a tad bit of a roadmap at times, or a roadblock, depending on what structure or process you're putting in place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and not everybody wants to be all in on your first conversation either. So, sometimes part of that is, you have to nurture that client as well to get them to a point where they are all in and are ready to hear what you have to say. And that.
And Deborah, that actually aligns really well with the relentless conversation. And because sometimes, and I'm sure none of you would have, I'm being totally facetious at this moment. I'm going to forewarn you, is sometimes we're so relentless, we can push somebody away. And let me give you an example of this.
Right. Because you don't know how much is too much communication. And for each person, that's going to be different. For me, I may be comfortable with you reaching out to me 10 times, but for Richard, maybe he only wants to hear from you once or twice before he's like, okay, I'm done, cut you off, go away.
Right. And so we have some opportunities to clarify and test the water, if you will.
Mhm.
And I shared today, I hired a, and Richard, you may know Jim Pelly, right? Yeah. I hired him as a speaking coach at one point in time, and he observed me speaking at an audience. And as we had lunch afterwards, he says, "What made you decide to get the automatic rifle out?" He's like, "You shot your whole audience." And Haley knows all about that because I do it all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Because so often we forget that people can't process that much. We want to give value, 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 value.
Mhm.
And the challenge is they're now overwhelmed and they no longer have the ability to receive. And so relentless can be detrimental at times too.
Mhm.
I mean, I go ahead, Miss Haley.
Well, it reminds me of the onion concept, the slaying the onion concept. You know, we are very guarded. All of us are very guarded. And if you try to slay through all of those walls that we put there on purpose, you know, with total disregard for how that other person is feeling, it's uncomfortable for you and it's uncomfortable for them, and it could possibly damage the relationship. So it's like this really tricky balance between relentlessness, which I think can exist. True relentlessness can exist in a healthy way, but it requires like a really high level of awareness in communication with that other person, you know, sensing their levels of resistance and being like, oh, I think this is a little bit, you know, they're not ready for this, or this is uncomfortable for them. You know, you've got to put your antennas up.
So relentless doesn't necessarily mean now. You could be relentless over 12 months. I know
Absolutely.
one of
Yes.
the challenges I have when I have initial consult with clients is, on the one hand,
Great job, Haley.
my goal is to impress them with how much I know so that I can help them, right? On the other hand, people have described it as trying to drink water from a fire hose. I mean, you're just getting overwhelmed with stuff. And so it's, to me, it is kind of a balance between exactly what Haley said. You got to read where the other person is. And if they're engaged and still absorbing, great. If not, time to, you know, sort of come up with a different strategy.
Well, and Richard, I love how you immediately aligned with what Haley was sharing, because Haley, one of the gifts that as an asset to our team, not only does she get to shine in her gifting, yet what you just observed is that she owns the material. I mean, I saw that from the first day she came into one of my groups as a client, is what she just expresses. I get this. I mean, she finds the visuals that I couldn't contemplate yet, because she hears it and sees it in a way that I haven't presented it yet, which makes it so much more fun. And so, Richard, you also, I loved your comment in regards to the gift that sometimes relentless is being 12 months out. And
Right.
Deborah, you were making a comment about that earlier. Sometimes a person in 10 times in the same month is not going to be too happy with you.
Right. No, 10 times over a year, though. I mean, that's a relationship builder.
Exactly. And Deborah, how long have we known each other?
I don't know, about 4 years,
At
3 years.
least. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least. And that was all from one referral. Somebody had introduced you to me, and Chris, matter of fact, Chris Passon.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? I was just having a conversation with Haley. And by the way, Chris, if and when you cross paths with Chris, and Richard, do you know Chris Passon?
Chris,
Passon?
I do. Yeah.
Yes. So isn't that a small world, right? And
Yeah.
yet Chris was a BNI member, and him and I were BNI members together, and we would refer people back and forth, part of our BNI process, of people we knew was a good fit. One of the things I discovered as I was doing our numbers, 100% of our clientele is from, when I take it all the way back, is from an advocate. 100%. Although I would be referred to somebody from that group or whatever it was, every group I got into was from an advocate. Every group I would teach or speak at was from an advocate or from a relationship advocate. You think there's a reason that we 100% support advocate building?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that business is done in such a different way now. It's no longer about what information can you share about whatever your process, your product, whatever it is that you have, because the information is so readily available on the internet as far as products and what they expect and want. I think now business is just done in a way where there's so many people available out there doing the same thing that it is based on relationships.
It is absolutely the commitment to know that a person wants to connect with that like-minded. I love that. And you're right, there's so much readily available. And yet, and what the way we love to say it in the coaching world is nobody reinvents the wheel, we reinvent our approach. The concept is relatively, and it's fun. My toolbox is outrageously full, and yet each person's going to have a different need for a different tool, right? So I'm curious as we wrap up this, and by the way, you're allowed, just because we're bringing up the Relentless doesn't mean that anyone can't bring up another question or thought at any point in time. And we have kind of gone on different tangents. Is there anything, other questions that are coming up? Richard, you have a look on your face.
Well, I'm just thinking about what Deborah was just saying, because part of that is also we live in a pretty divided society at the moment. And I think part of the art of building that relationship is just looking for the commonality, which all society would be very well served to focus on. Then what makes us different is far less important than what makes us similar. And certainly in building a relationship, that's critical. And that's another part of being relentless is, oh, wait a minute, this is not a commonality with the person I'm talking to. So let's find a different area that is a commonality, that we can have a shared value.
So Richard, you said a couple of things. One of the songs that came up immediately, Mandisa has a song called We All Bleed the Same. I think it's called something else, but it's a really beautiful song. And yeah, I also heard you say that wouldn't it be wonderful if the community, all our communities understood how to appreciate each other's commonalities. Yeah, one of the things we talked about last week is the ability to walk over to the other person's side and be able to see, validate. But you don't always have to agree, yet confirm and hear before you ask for agreement or the ability to move to the middle and say, see, do you see that we both are seeing different things? Yeah. That's one of the things that we're pretty on fire about, is to help people understand that there is gift in understanding each other's definitions, even if they're different, once you've honored the other person. And here's the challenge of the world we live in. Everybody wants to be heard first before they hear.
If they hear at all.
Yeah.
And listening is one of the biggest gifts of leadership we could have.
Yep.
And again, just because we validate someone doesn't mean we agree. It means that we confirm that we heard. And that alone is a gift.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. That was a really big opportunity of not only a worldly situation, yet a right in front of us every situation. And all of us have that happening in some form or fashion. I'm in a training right now, and I was coaching somebody, and I said something that came across intimidating. I don't know how that happened. Anyways. And it was like, I see it happen all the time. And thankfully they showed me how just a couple tweaks, it would have came through in curiosity, not into pushing or judging. Anyone that knows me well enough knows that I don't ever work to judge anybody. That's just not who I am. Yet if you don't have a relationship with me, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
And I can't help but, steer the pot. I'm kind of well known for that. And yet, in the same aspect, could we all grow? And so each of us have opportunity to learn how to hear, and Deborah, the other thing about that relationship is, and going back to that relentlessness, is sometimes discovering what that, and asking the questions, and not everybody knows yet, so how often do you want to be communicated with, or how often would you get value out of this? Okay, once a week, once a month, and then depending on which sales training you listen to, you cut that in half, right? Yet, again, it's about that connection and discovering how you built that relationship, right? And what they need to hear so that they know that you hear them. That makes sense?
Yeah.
April, if I may share a story that's coming up for me, it's not my own personal, it's from the Bible, actually. But it's the story of Job. And I started thinking about it when we were talking about, relentlessness doesn't mean that it needs to happen now, that, you can be so pushy and so relentless and so aggressive that you just make things happen. And that's not what we're talking about. But it reminds me of the story of Job. And if you're not familiar with the story, Job basically lost everything. He had livestock and a family and property, and he lost it all, and his health in a series of like horrible tragedies. And he had these friends who came to him to comfort him. And they didn't say anything for 7 days. They didn't speak for 7 days. They just went and sat in his presence to mourn with him. And those were some relentless friends. That was some relentless friendship, to just go and sit in silence for 7 days and mourn with their friend. But they didn't try to make the process go quicker. They didn't try to burn that bridge or step over that bridge or try to change Job's opinion about what was going on in his life or anything. They were just relentlessly available to serve their friend. And that, I think the spirit of that is what I talk about when I say that relentlessness is a value of mine, is that I'm just relentlessly available to serve, however that looks in each situation.
I love your share. Richard, what resonated?
What's funny, I know in the Jewish faith, there's a practice of doing that, of just sitting in I forget the term, but there's a specific word for that, sit in sheeb or something like that, where you're just being with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Very relentless.
Well, and Deborah, your commentary earlier about how somebody needs to be connected with, that's the being, that's the relationship. And the opportunities each of us get to determine. And Richard, am I always the intimidating coach?
Not always, no.
Have I learned you well enough to know what you can handle and when you can handle it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And less than intimidating, it's in the kindest way possible, I would say invasive.
Ooh, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Which is what you hire me for, whether you like it or not, right?
Exactly.
Right. And that's that concept of being the insider and the outsider, right? That I get to, and this is what Haley loves about how we build our business, is we become one of your team players, whether you like it or not, because then we have enough awareness of what's happening inside, yet we're able to step out long enough to say, okay, as I look over this picture, let's deal with this one. And then when you're ready for this one, we'll deal with this one, and we'll deal with this one. And it's a whole process, right? Yeah, we get to be.
Absolutely. I apologize. I am sending off a message because somebody thought I was going to be in a meeting with them right now. And I'm letting them know, no, because they were talking about East Coast time and I was talking about West Coast time. So.
Oh boy, I get to deal with time zones all the time.
We're very familiar with that.
All the time. Deborah, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say I love, Haley, what you had said about being relentlessly available to serve, because that is the distinction between, or I feel like that is the distinction in how you need to be building relationships right now, is that you do need to be persistent, but you also need to figure out like, how can you serve the other party? Like what what can you do to be of service to them? And I don't even mean just with your products or what have you, but being socially active with them, even if it's just networking on social network with Facebook or, Instagram or something like that, and being able to identify when they have something to be congratulated for or something that they need help with, or, so being able to be available to serve in whatever capacity it is that they might need for that time.
Absolutely.
Well, and Deborah, what do you, if you allow me, and you never know when you're on the hot seat, so you're allowed to say, nope, I don't want to be on the hot seat. What have you learned in your journey of how you serve people and how you share it?
So that's a big thing for me right now, because and even just things that I've learned even just today, because I'm in, a few different coaching programs. I haven't been a loan officer very long, and I'm more from an operations perspective. So it's like numbers, black and white, 1 + 1 = 2, that kind of thing. So I've been very heavy on giving information, but haven't really taken the time to personally connect. What's your dog's name? What's your child's name? Congratulating people on their sales or their wins or what have you, instead of just having it be all about me and what I can do for you professionally. I want to be, I'm making that shift where I realize that I have to be their friend first, or I don't want to be just an acquaintance. I don't want to be somebody that they only talk to, 9 to 5. I want to be somebody that becomes incorporated into their daily routine. And oh, by the way, I do loans too. So, you know what I mean? Maybe the friendship first, and then, oh, by the way, I do business too.
Well, and Deborah, and this is accurate for all businesses, you're looking for strategic partnerships, right?
Absolutely.
And I know who your strategic partners are. Yeah. Will you share with the group in regards to the type of strategic partners you're looking for?
I am looking for anyone. So I'm looking for buyers that I can help buy, sell, or refinance. So that could be all of you. Haley, somebody that maybe they live in California and I can only do business in California, but maybe somebody in California that wants to buy and you're not available to assist them. So a few people, and maybe you would be willing to refer them to me to do business with them. But yes, I help everyone to buy, sell, or refinance. And I am specifically trying to be engaged with single moms and the millennial target. I was a single mom myself, and I have 4 children that are all millennials. Only one of them can afford to buy a home right now. And so it's something very, very important to me, is to help those people and help raise them up and lift them up.
And Richard?
I'm processing. Deborah had said a lot of interesting things there.
Thank you, Deborah.
I'm probably not as proficient as I should be at acknowledging either accomplishments or events for people. And part of that is my own bias against what I will non-politically correct call the bullshit that's on social media so much, right? It's like, oh God, I don't want to know what you had for breakfast, right?
And I just got happy that I cooked that. Are you kidding me? Keep going. Sorry.
So I have some feeling about that. But on the other hand, the area that I get the most satisfaction is when I can identify a need that somebody I'm talking to has, and I can help them find a resource for that need. Doesn't matter whether it's with me or somebody else. Doesn't have to be legal. It could be they're trying to find a mechanic, right? And when I can connect somebody up, that's a great source of satisfaction for me. And So I think that's a different way of building that relationship with folks. But people don't trust you with what they really need until they get to know you a little bit, right? That's
what I'm finding. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and there's a couple of opportunities. Both of you, ironically, could have an amazing target market of real estate agents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the opportunity is to determine who are our advocates that are agents. Who and I happen to know one of yours, Richard. And it helps from being in the arena for so long in California, right?
Yeah.
And actually, probably Deborah, I probably know quite a few of yours in that journey. And the hardest part we have is to ask, is to say, so Deborah, you know, what attorney, chiropractor, or real estate individual would be of value to bring to our Q&As that would get value from being here with you, to learn with you? Now, do you see that I just asked you for an advocate opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
Was it uncomfortable?
No, not at all.
Richard, who would be a real estate agent that would be a lot of fun to introduce to Deborah, to get to know her and to get to, or somebody that you two connect to learn how to be advocates?
The first name that comes to mind is Dave Johnson.
That's who I was thinking.
Yeah. And he, you know, he's a good guy. And I refer him a fair amount of business as well. So.
And Deborah, Dave Johnson is a well-known advocate in the community of Auburn and California, Sacramento. He's been in the industry forever, and he is a big advocate of people that want to invest in people in the community, like you do. So if anyone, he'd be able to connect you with a real estate agent in your area that he might know, because he's been around forever.
Nice.
And we've known him forever.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to say that Chris and I ended up hooking up last week and shared information. And so now we are available to assist each other, just based on the conversation that we had last week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. That is awesome. So you never know who are the opportunities are going to be from that connection, right? So the gift of being here, and I have a feeling a couple people are here taking their wives out for a long weekend, so that are normally here. But so we'll give them grace this week. Not that, you know, we're thankful every week you were able to be present with us. Yet with that, any other questions as we wrap up today? Isn't that awesome? That was a lot to digest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being willing, because we always end up with interesting subjects and interesting conversations. And we're always thankful. So next week, Ms. Haley, our subject is?
Oh gosh, I need to be prepared with that. I don't even know. I would have to look.
So we are working to be prepared and in advance. So we are working on our content, etc. But remember, these are all for open questions. So at any point in time that you bring in the room and we end up going on that tangent, we're totally open to that. So this is your community. This is our opportunity to serve you and be the most helpful we can be. Happy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Yeah.
week, everyone. We will see
Really
you next
enjoyed the
time.
conversation today, guys. Have a good day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Thanks, you
Valentine's
too.
Day.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.